So my LinkedIn profile right now um, says up at the top, people first, tools second. And I bring that up because that was kind of a transformative realization for me because I had spent a lot of time in my career as an instructional designer and then a learning experience architect and then a team leader focused on the solutions, creating solutions and thereby and the tools used to create them. So for me, tools were really the big, that was what mattered. And I was excited about tools and learning new technologies and educating my teams about those technologies and encouraging people to lean into those technologies. You're getting a sense of the theme here.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but over time, um, and even though I have had several initiatives in my past that I was really proud of, how we solved them using tools. I came to realize that the hardest challenges aren't about building the learning itself. They're about the environment that the learning lives in. I've seen programs falter not because the design was wrong, but because of conflicting priorities and siloed communication or leadership treating that training like it was a quick fix. So, an
Yes.
example, I once built a program that on paper checked every instructional design box, but the organization hadn't aligned their priorities, so participants were constantly being pulled in different directions. It wasn't until we paused and said, okay, what are the competing initiatives here and how do we reconcile them that the program started to work? And that taught me that sometimes the most important part of our job is helping stakeholders surface and solve organizational challenges before we ever launch a course.
Absolutely. Right. And that brings to mind the importance of needs assessment, right? That we should not skip that needs assessment because that tells you right away, is it an organizational issue or is it a training issue? And I teach this to my students all the time. Please do not skip that process in your projects. Please do not do that because then you get all the way to, if you're using ADDIE, as your basic framework, and then you get all the way to implementation, and then you go, oops, that's a big oops. You don't,
Well,
you can do,
and
if, yeah, yeah.
wouldn't you say also that a great lesson for anyone in instructional design is learning that having those frameworks, having those processes, having those mechanisms with which you engage other humans, your stakeholders, your business owners, your team members, are extreme that they're extremely valuable, and without them, many times you're not quite sure where you would start. But they by themselves are not the solution. You can follow them to the letter and still discover that they did not accomplish what they were intended to accomplish. And sometimes that happens because what you weren't aware of came up to bite you. And it wasn't something you thought was relevant. It wasn't even something you thought to look at. So, what I like to say is use those tools, follow a process, be consistent, but never forget that everything is happening in a human environment. And 9 times out of 10, there's more than one group of people, or more than one business, or more than one competing priority that is simultaneously going on behind the scenes. And you cannot simply bury your head in the sand and think that if you just focus laser sharp on this problem or this project, that you'll be safe, for lack of a better word.